Alright, so this is Bob Vila the mower. I've showed him on here before briefly, but this is an old school, like 20 plus year old Craftsman Signature Series mower that Bob Vila endorsed, and it was donated to the channel by our good friend Liz, and it was not in running shape when I got a hold of it, but I realized that the bones of this mower were really good, so I decided to bring it back to its former glory. It has a few little quirks, like the little spring that holds the flap shut is broken, but a bungee cord works well, so we're not worried about that. But one of the things that we have worked on, had working for a while, and now has quit working again, is the self-propulsion on the front. Now, it does still kind of engage, but not really well. And the pull cord, the cable, is just wore out, and we're going to replace that today. There you can see that the front drive is really weak and barely moves the mower at all, especially if there's any grass in the bag. So I purchased this high quality, you can tell it is because it says it is, replacement cable on Amazon for about $12 a few months ago. Don't ask me why it's taking me this long to get around to installing it. So before we get started, you'll need some basic tools. I'm using a little 1/4-inch drive with a 5/16 socket, which will fit the cover for the drive mechanism. Also, I'm going to use this jack stand. You can use a block or a piece of wood or whatever, just something to kind of hold the front of it up in the air while you work on it to make it a little easier to reach. The only other tool that I can think of offhand that I might need is a pair of needle nose pliers, but if something else comes up, I'll let you know. So for starters, we'll remove this cover that protects the belt for the drive mechanism. Here you can see we got a little bit of debris stuck in there. Little debris. So here's our cable, right? This is the cable that comes down from up top. I'll take still pictures and superimpose them so you can see where it connects to. But the cable comes through a bracket right here and goes down to engage the pull mechanism, and I can tell just by looking at it that the spring that connects everything together is badly worn. I'll go ahead and take the camera down off the tripod now and show you that up close. Okay, pardon me for shaking. I'm holding this in my hand. Here, as I mentioned, is that bracket where the cable comes down to. You can see the cable running through it right there, and here is that spring, which is twisted up real bad down there at the bottom. And here you can see that the actual spring is broken, and a piece of baling wire was wrapped around the end of the cable there and connected through the bracket where the hook for the spring, which is, try to show you here. Yeah, right there. That hook should be hooked through the bracket, but instead this piece of baling wire right here is hooked in its place. Sorry for that going out of focus. When I move my fingers around in front of it, the camera's autofocus goes nuts. Let me get that disconnected. Here on the bottom, you'll see the wire sticking through the hole where the spring is supposed to be connected. All right, now that we have this mess disconnected, if you look right here, you'll see this portion of the bracket is actually a plastic fitting that presses down through this metal plate right here. So I'm going to reach up from underneath with a pair of needle nose pliers and try to pop that loose. Okay, there we go. You can see from underneath I got the needle nose pliers on it, and I'm pinching it and pushing upward to get it out of the hole. Now I'll come around and pry it out just like that. And that releases the cable from the bracket. And if you look right over here on top, you'll see that there's a rounded portion of the hole that allows the spring to slip through it. Probably would be easier if the spring wasn't all bent out of shape. And I think I'm going to have to cut that piece of baling wire off of there to get it out.
A few moments later.
And here I took the baling wire off of there, and I was able to get the rest of it right through that hole in the bracket right there. Okay, here for comparison is our old bracket in our new one, you'll see that it appears to be the same one, although the new one is not nearly as tore up as the old one. We're going to go ahead and get that pushed back down through the hole now. Start by pushing the spring portion down through the round part of the hole, then clipping the new plastic bracket in place, and it went right in. Now we'll come from underneath. Now from the bottom side, we'll take the end of our spring and we're going to push it from the inside out towards the tire through the hole in the mechanism. And then we'll flip it around. We'll flip it around like that, and it'll lock into place once we get the slack taken out of our cable. It would help if you had somebody to pull on that for you, but you can hold it in place with one hand and work the slack out of the cable with the other hand. Then coming back here, you'll see how the cable is properly oriented into the bracket. And to show you how that works from the top, when the cable is pulled and the mechanism is lifted, you'll see that the belt tightens on the pulley, which causes the pulley to turn and the wheels to drive. I'll show you how that works once the thing is put back together and running. Okay. Now that we have all of the slack taken out of our cable, we pulled on it here. You can kind of see there how the mechanism moves. Now we have to route our cable. We're going to get rid of this old one here, which is routed through the body in a couple of places. I'm going to try to reuse that to reattach to there once we've got it all put together. There's also held underneath some zip ties here. We'll clip those and replace it along the line. Okay, here you can see that the old mechanism and the new mechanism are a little different, but I don't think it should be a big deal. We might have to change this bolt for one that's a little shorter to fit through one of these holes. But the end of the cable appears to be the same. We'll twist that around and we'll take this old one out of the end of the pull handle and we'll replace it with the new one, which clips right in like that. And now let me get this out of the way so that we can fasten this to the side of the mower. Okay, so this bolt appears to be 7/16. Let me see if I can crack that loose there. I got it loose, not rusted up too bad, and we'll get it right out of the way. So now we can put our screw back through the hole, line it up through one of these partitions. I'm going to go with that one, I think. Let's see. I might take one more. Let me see if I can move it down one and achieve the same goal. Oh, that's too tight. We got to be it on the loosest one in this case. I'll go ahead and put that back on there. Notice I went with the deep socket because now that we have a much thinner bracket, a standard socket might not fit all the way down on that bolt. So just be mindful of that. And let me get something to hold the back side of it real quick. And for reference, in this case, the bolt on the back side was 3/8 inch. Your mileage may vary in your circumstance. There we go. So now I'm going to pull the cable. It takes all the tension out of that, and I'll show you what that looks like on the other side. And here, when the cable is depressed, you'll see that it takes the slack out of the belt, pulling it tight, which will allow the drive shaft on the engine to engage the pulley to make the wheels spin. All right, so as I mentioned before, I'd like to be able to clip this down to the body, so I'm going to try to keep this little circular fastener here by cutting the old cable, getting it out of our way. Then I can push this back down into the hole and use a zip tie to secure the cable through it. Now this particular kit did come with a couple of zip ties, but it's going to need more than what it came with to properly secure this along the way. And as I mentioned before, I was going to cheat a little bit, and I got some heavy-duty zip ties to replace these with, just so they don't break and I don't have to worry about it. Because these old ones were kind of heavier than the ones that came with the kit. And we'll get the rest of that old cable out of our way. We'll give this one of these nice big heavy-duty zip ties right there. And we'll put another one up here toward the top of the handle. Just be careful. Sometimes the edges of the zip ties are real sharp after you cut them. I like to come back through and burn them with a cigarette lighter just to take the sharp edges off so you don't cut yourself when you're working on the machine. So now that I have the mower put back together, let me show you how this thing works while I have the cover off. As I showed you before, the cable gets tight, and when you pull it, it starts to spin, which turns the front tires. And all that's left here now is to reinstall that little front cover. So if you got something out of that, consider giving us a like or a subscribe or leave a comment down below. It really does help out. And until next time, folks, take care and God bless.